So if you're a parent or a guardian, this conversation is absolutely important for you. The reason is simple. My producer will put up that video where we now see a surging practice, not just at tertiary level, but even at the secondary school level, this practice of signing out of university or secondary school when they finished their coursework and they finally graduated. We see display of wealth, of money. And some even do it in dollars. How did we get here? Now, this is just one of many. You see children or young people driving in with exotic cars, showing off their girlfriend, giving them bouquets, spraying money, putting other persons who may not have such privileges under pressure. There's a reason why secondary school insists on wearing uniform. But on that particular day, everything goes off the radar. So this is very concerning because you expect that they have graduated, they haven't gotten so many experiences in life. Okay, some may do one or two businesses, but why is this allowed? We see this happening even on campus. So we want to have more like a triangular conversation across board, involving policymakers, involving the institution, involving parents, involving people that do what we call family life practices. And we have a panel to have this conversation because it's a very disturbing trend. I'm sure you would have seen it in different schools, public schools, private schools, where young people come with big cars, cars that some of us are dreaming to drive. They are already driving it and spraying God knows how much on girls or themselves. So it's very concerning. Joining us is Ronke Posh. She's a family life practitioner. She joins us virtually right here in Lagos. Thank you for coming on the program. We also have joining us Oludolakpo Adewale. She's a parent. She's right here in our Lagos studio. And we also have Professor Chima Nwokocha. Is the Dean, Student Affairs, University of Port Harcourt. We understand the Prof will be catching up with us in just a moment. Let me start with you, Mrs. Adewale, before I get to Madam Posh. What's your impression when you see, as a parent, speaking as a parent now, when you see what we just described? This is just one of many videos that we could just get out to at least represent the conversation. What do you make of it?
For me, disheartening is the word. When I saw the video, a couple of emotions welled up in me. First, sadness, anger, and, will I say, disgust, and maybe concern as well, because I was like, how did we get here? Flashback to like 24 years ago when I graduated from secondary school or passed out of secondary school, the norm in my secondary school then was that everyone should put on their uniforms at their passing out parade or passing out event. But I think how we got here is a matter of we want to express ourselves. Parents want to express themselves through the children, and it's quite very, very, very dangerous. What I would say is we are looking at 5 steps ahead. We want to get ahead of ourselves, and that is a big problem. When I see parents who couldn't afford a particular thing when they were growing up, and then they look at their children and feel like they can express themselves through their children, that is one category where parents say, oh, the cars I couldn't drive during my time, my child, when I have the opportunity, my child is going to take that to prom. And talking about prom, when did we start getting that culture of prom? I'm not saying that the way it was 20 years ago, we should still be doing passing out parade the same way. But I think that when we are adding creativity to things, we should be modest about it. We should know when to draw the line. Children are seeing things on social media. Just yesterday, I was seeing something online where a parent was asking someone online, saying, can my child join your group? And the group is questionable by all standards. And the man was responding to say, just by your choice. The parent is aiding and abetting that kind of behavior because the parent wants a better life, in quote, for the child, not in legitimate ways. So I think parents, we need to soft pedal on trying to express ourselves through our children.
So let's get to Madam Posh. Well, materialism at its finest. Prom. So materialism at its finest we see being expressed. Sadly, prom. Like she's even mentioned the issue of prom. We're even talking about passing out parade. She's mentioned prom now, where these children come in with exotic cars, dressed in the finest of dresses and suits and all of that. Should we be alarmed, or this is just young people expressing themselves?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I don't think we should be alarmed. We've allowed this to happen. And I understand from the lady talking about parents. But we must understand that these displays, these spectacles, these embarrassing shows are happening in schools. The schools have lost purpose. Many schools have lost purpose. And if the purpose of something is unknown, abuse is inevitable. If the river does not know its source, it will soon dry up. And that is exactly what is happening. We have left our roots and our culture. Today, we cannot brag of an African curriculum. We cannot even brag of anything Nigerian. Our Nigerian curriculum, we don't take pride in it. Many schools don't, they don't use it. So I'm going back to the roots. We don't know what we are doing, so we import anything that we see, and then we do it times 10. The schools have become a place that have allowed any kind of thing to happen because there is a bankruptcy and a poverty of the mind happening in many schools. So they will pander to what the parents want, and they forget that a school is an educational institution. Many of those children doing all those parades have not even done well. They don't have good grades. Some of them have not even seen their results. And these sort of things are happening. Yes, I'm a family life therapist, but I also run a school in Ikoyi. So I'm also a parent whose child was the prom queen in 2023. So I kind of know I'm sitting in different angles and I understand what exactly is going on. But I want to talk about it from the perspective of culture. We don't practice our culture. We import cultures. We don't know what we are doing. When I graduated in 1996, we wore white for our graduation. That's what we used to do. And as the lady said, yes, we don't have to do it exactly the same way, but we don't have to now allow it to be a place where parents come to show off. And self-esteem and ego, you can see low self-esteem, inferiority complex, and all sorts are happening there. Things that are not relevant. Why don't they look after the community and do all those sort of things? You see all sorts of shows. If you want a show, you go to a club, you go to a theater. You don't come to a school. The schools don't have values anymore. If you have values, then you will say, not under my watch. We don't do that here. Schools are not able to tell parents anything anymore. I saw another one where the parents were the ones that were actually doing the fashion parade. Schools have become content creators, event planners. That's what they're doing. And they live for the moment where they are going to trend on social media as opposed to the products. So they have flowers, but they don't have fruits. And it's very sad. So a lot of the blame is by the people running these schools that have lost the vision and the mission of their schools and are pandering all around and causing this sort of embarrassing displays, setting these children up, sexualizing them. You see children dressed anyhow, even like clubbers. I saw them carrying placards, wearing miniskirts in one school, and all sorts of things happening. We need to blame those schools. Those schools have gotten it so wrong. We are Africans. We need to go back to our roots. Let us behave like Africans.
I'd like to approach from the perspective of the youth at the risk of trying to understand what may perhaps be going on in their minds. The prom culture, definitely it's not a Nigerian culture, it's an exportation. So perhaps maybe the youths are looking at it from the perspective of it is an expression of the age of their own generation, and there is a generational disconnect between perhaps the millennials and the baby boomers and their own generation. I'd like you to speak to what may be going on in the minds of the youth before we now begin to explore whether or not parents have dropped their ball. Let's explore the minds of the youths. Okay, I'll bring that first to Mrs. Adewale, and then I'll come back to you.
Great question there, because you're speaking from the minds of Generation Z. And even if we're looking at babies we're giving birth to, Generation Alpha, and even this year from Generation Beta, they think differently. They are miles ahead, definitely. But at the same time, I think the role of parents, the role of educators is to guide. We all have the tendency to do things extra, but one thing that should always be our guide is that there's a break in transmission. Fine, we know that we want to express ourselves, youth want to express themselves. Prom culture should still be done with modesty and decency in mind. That is my point of view. When you want to do a particular thing, you look at a culture, you put it on the table, and you say, can I get this thing? Can I take the pros of this thing and not the cons of it? That is my point of view. Look at some of the videos that we've seen. We see people who are spraying dollars, foreign currency. Now, it boils down to the question of where did they get that kind of money? And when you go online, you see people spraying those kind of money online, adults. I always say this, let kids be kids. Let's dress appropriately according to our age. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in secondary school, I wasn't this kind of too expressive girl, but I wanted to do things my mates were doing. And then one of the days, one of my mates brought nail polish to class. And then I used the nail polish. Guess what? I forgot to clean it off, and I took it home. My mom saw it, and you know, when you're about to do something and your parents will see it. And my mom saw it, and she was like, she disciplined me for it, for using that nail polish. But guess what? After the discipline, she told me there is time for everything. That stuck with me. I use nail polish, but I don't even use it regularly now because I don't even have the time to do it, except when I want to, you know, because of my line of work. It just boils down to the fact that there is time for everything. Let kids be kids, and when they grow up, they will have enough time to express themselves.
So, Mrs. Posh, is there a way the prom culture can be sustained such that the children can still express themselves, but without this sexualization as we see in those videos where, you know, there's a boy and a girl, and we obviously understand what is in that mix for teenagers. So is there a way that this culture can be sustained, but it will be a leveler as well, and it can also be, you know, productive positively?
Absolutely. That's why there are guidelines. You see, there are trends, and these things, they change over. These things evolve. All these trends, they will change. And you talk about the mind of the Gen Z. I have Gen Z child, so I kind of like speak to a lot of the children. For them, it's TikTok likes. That's all that it is. Those children have to be rooted in values. You see, when this decadence happens and we see all these displays, it didn't happen 2 months before that day. It happened from the roots, from preschool, from primary, from when the children started secondary school, when we begin to tolerate all sorts of things, because there's going to be a planning process for all of this. There are going to be rules and guidelines. Okay, on prom day, you're not supposed to come with an aeroplane or a submarine or whatever the case may be. You need to have put the guidelines in place. What about, let us do something for the community? And then you say the graduates from this school are the ones that actually did a borehole for this place. How about putting colors in place? If you don't, you see, if something is not managed, it is subject to abuse. And that is what we are seeing now. A lot of abuse is happening. You see, children are easily content. If you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go to certain countries, there are certain things you cannot do because they will not tolerate it. But as Africans, as Nigerians, we see that we don't have any guideline. We don't do anything. We don't stick to our culture. So everything and anything is now acceptable. And that's why we are seeing all these sort of things. And it's so unfortunate. It is terribly unfortunate that schools that you have core values and stick by it, not just write it on a wall or print it on a website. You should actually ensure that you have core values, that there's modesty, there's resilience, that you are celebrating hard work. These are the things that we should be teaching the children. By the time my daughter graduated and she was head girl in her school, she was prom queen, and she, even abroad, she was also head girl in her, as well when she did her A-levels. All these things, she had written a book. She had been on presidential with Fela Durotoye on his boot camp. She had done many things because we we must ensure that we are building these children for life, not a display or a spectacle that we are seeing, just 1 or 2 days trends. If we don't guide these children, these are the results that we are going to continue to get. We don't know what we are doing as educators, and that is the sad truth.
What should be the action, Ms. Adewale? Action has to be taken like yesterday. That is why we hope that Prof can join us. We wanted somebody from the academia to be on this table because at least that's at the tertiary level where these things happen. We know that every school, whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary, is a combination of haves and have-nots. So there is, of course, that social strata disparity. But schools have a way of ensuring that everybody is on the same level because this is actually a training ground, not a business entity in that sense. But now they've been doing this prom. This signing out is become some sort of a new culture for Gen Z. How do we step back?
Okay.
Enforcement now.
I'm all for creativity, but I would say maybe we should step back and go back to the analog days in the sense that everyone should put on their uniforms at proms or at parental parade. In my secondary school, Queen's School Ibadan, that was how we did. All we did was that our uniforms were just spot on that day. That's on the side. I think the second thing would be that we should continue to emphasize hard work. There is no shortcut to success. There's a song that comes to my mind right now, and it's by Gates Baba, Little Drops. I mean, yes, little follow, that's the title of the song. We just want to follow the trend without really understanding it. And I think one thing that will also help us as adults is whatever we want to post, these young people have access to internet. Whatever we want to post, let it pass through a 5-way test. Is it good to post? Am I going to affect lives if I'm posting it? If a young person sees this content, will the young person be able to watch? Right now, you have kids. My young child will take your device, and I'll try to be putting things in place on my device, not to make him see things that are not appropriate to his age. So I think when we want to post, you should take a step back to say, is this thing appropriate for a child? Can a child see this and be okay with it? So as adults, we can put that process in place to make sure that whatever we post is not going to be detrimental for the child. The child, you had a conversation earlier and you talked about child abuse. The child is the property of the government. We should protect the child at every instance that we have. That's why I get sad, even in our state, when I see parents putting the child in front of a vehicle. It's not appropriate. Children should be seated at the back. A child should not be seated in front. Even parents driving and putting a child in front, I get sad, I cringe. Sometimes I go to meet the parents to say, please, permit me to just say one thing. Your child shouldn't be sitting here. It's child safety. A child's safety should come first, whether a child is a kid or a teenager.
Very quickly now, let's talk about where, parents and the academic authorities may have dropped the ball. Madam Posh, I know that you've received a lot of these videos. Perhaps you've even interacted with some school authorities. Why do they allow this to go on and these videos abound online?
Sorry, I didn't catch your question. Why did the schools allow it to go on?
Do the schools allow it to go on? Let's speak to the schools now and parents. And these videos are online.
The schools allowed it to go on because they've lost their purpose. They don't know what they stand for anymore. They don't understand that they're educational institutions. Like I said at the top of the meeting, that schools have become event planners. They have become TikTok influencers now. They all just want to produce content that will trend for a couple of days, just like the teens want to do. And you see that even parents are getting involved in this sort of things. You see ego on display, you see low self-esteem on display, where people are competing amongst themselves. There's toxicity all around. Now, the environment is what has allowed it to thrive. If the school says we do not do that here, then it will not continue. So schools have to go back to the reason. They have to go back to the reason why they were set up in the first place. And what is it that you want to generate at the end of it? What are you celebrating? The pupils and the children and the students, they should be celebrating their achievements, not necessarily wearing clothes and cars and stuff like that, things that they cannot even afford. So you're setting a lot of these children up. Okay, I've heard people say, oh, a lot of them are going abroad. They don't behave like this abroad. They can't even afford, many of them can't afford things like this abroad. I lived in the UK for 2 decades, so I'm not speaking from an ignorant perspective. They don't operate like this in many countries. I find that a lot of this display of madness happen in certain places in America or maybe in Africa. Mostly I see in Africa happening like this. And that's because we are not going back to our roots. We don't know what we represent. We don't know what we stand for. And if the purpose of something is unknown, it is said that abuse is inevitable. And that is why we see it. So shame on all those kind of schools that are tolerating this sort of things. I'm an educator. I'm in the educational sector, but I feel embarrassed because of what we have allowed to enter and creep into our society today.
Well, thank you both. Well said. Ronke Posh, family life practitioner, joining us virtually. Olu Dolakbo Adewale, a parent who joined us right here in Lagos studio. Ladies, I almost said gentlemen, forgive me.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much, and we'll continue to shine the light on these things. And it's not the end of the conversation. We're going to get the policymakers and the institutions themselves to come have a sit down so that we can also hear from them. Perhaps bring in the young people themselves. Somebody who has been king or queen of prom, and let's also see how we can explore this, because we need to hear all sides. It's a practice we do here at Channels Television, so that we understand where everybody's coming from, so we can help us secure our society. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we want to talk about security in the Southeast region. Amnesty International published a report saying that between 2021 or so and 2023, a space of about 2 years, 1,800 plus persons have been killed by state and non-state actors. And this has generated a lot of commentary and concern. And I know when it has to do with the Southeast, a lot of talk comes out of this. We're going to be joined by an official of the Amnesty International right here on the station in just a moment. Stay with us.